Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most dangerous and completely hidden geological structures on our entire planet. We are talking about a force of nature so unbelievably immense that it operates on a scale that literally dwarfs human history. I promise you, by the end of this explainer, you are going to look at the ground beneath your feet in a completely different way. All right, let's get right into it. When you picture the East China Sea, about 50 kilometers south of Kyushu, Japan, you probably imagine, total tranquility. You've got these small, peaceful volcanic islands poking up above the waterline. You got tourists visiting hot springs, fishermen just quietly sailing over the blue water. It's idyllic. But just 2.5 kilometers beneath that serene surface, a world-ending force is actively waking up. So what's actually lurking beneath those fishing boats? It's known as the Kikai caldera. And if you need a quick refresher, a caldera is essentially a massive collapsed volcanic crater left behind by a previous mega eruption. But the sheer scale of this hidden monster is what's just so staggering. It's approximately 19 kilometers wide. I mean, think about that. If you could somehow drain the ocean and stand at one edge, the other side would be so far away it would basically vanish over the horizon. This entire structure is large enough to swallow a small city completely whole, and yet it remains completely invisible from the surface. To really grasp the stakes of what's happening down there right now, we need to look at the eruption that erased and transition back about 7,300 years. The terrifying scale of Kikai really snaps into focus when we compare it using the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI. You're probably familiar with the eruption of Mount Vesuvius that buried Pompeii, right? Or the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. Both of those were massive, devastating VEI-5 events. But the Kikai Akahoya eruption 7,300 years ago, that was a VEI-7. That is literally just one single level below the absolute maximum scale that scientists even measure. What that actually means is that the Kikai eruption was roughly 100 times more powerful than the blast that destroyed Pompeii. Let that sink in, 100 times. It ejected between 150 and 225 cubic kilometers of volcanic material straight into the sky. To put that into perspective, it blasted out enough debris to bury an area the entire size of modern-day Tokyo under 50 meters of solid rock and ash. So the crucial question is, what did this mean for the people living nearby? Well, at that time, southern Japan was home to the Middle Jomon culture, which was this thriving prehistoric society known for really complex pottery and permanent settlements. When Kikai exploded, it unleashed pyroclastic flows. These are essentially avalanches of gas, ash, and rock heated to 700 degrees Celsius, literally hot enough to melt glass. And here is the truly terrifying part. These flows did something scientists once thought was impossible. They were so massive and moving so fast that they actually skimmed right across the surface of the ocean for over 100 kilometers. They reached the shores of Kyushu and obliterated entire Jomon settlements and forests in a matter of minutes. Let's slow down for a second and look at the timeline of the Jomon erasure. Because of those superheated ocean avalanches, the devastation was absolute. The land was so thoroughly destroyed, so deeply buried, that it remained uninhabitable for about 500 years. Half a millennium of total silence. No people, no animals, no trees. Just a gray, toxic landscape stretching as far as the eye could see. There's a quote that perfectly summarizes this. The Jomon civilization in southern Kyushu did not decline. It did not fade. It was erased. And the nightmare didn't even stop in southern Japan. The tephra ash blanketed the entire Japanese archipelago, eventually reaching the Korean peninsula. It pumped so much sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere that it triggered a global volcanic winter. Global temperatures plummeted, sunlight dimmed, and Jomon communities far, far away from the initial blast faced years of failed harvests and totally collapsed food sources. Now, let's pivot from ancient history to some deeply alarming modern-day findings that suggest the volcano is reloading. So, back in March 2026, a team of researchers from Kobe University and the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology, or JAMSTEC, wanted to know exactly what was happening beneath Kikai today. So what did they do? They deployed a network of 39 ocean-bottom seismometers right across the caldera floor. And their methodology here is absolutely fascinating. They fired artificial seismic pulses into the Earth, and then, essentially, just listened to the echoes. By analyzing how those sound waves bounced off underground structures, they were able to generate a highly detailed 3D map of that subterranean world. And that 3D map revealed something pretty terrifying.
It showed a massive magma reservoir sitting at a depth of just 2.5 to 6 kilometers beneath the seafloor. Now, I know 2.5 kilometers might sound deep, but in geological terms, that is an extraordinarily shallow depth. It is sitting dangerously close to the surface. But honestly, the placement of the magma wasn't even the biggest shock. It was the composition. See, scientists generally assumed that any magma left beneath Kikai would be old, just the cooling, crystallized leftovers from that catastrophic eruption 7,300 years ago. But actually, scratch that. Chemical analysis from a growing lava dome inside the caldera proved the exact opposite. The magma they found is fresh. It's newly injected melt, it's hot, it's fluid, and it is actively being supplied from much deeper within the Earth. This discovery basically changes everything we thought we knew about this site. As the source material puts it, the Kikai supervolcano is not dying. It is reloading like a weapon in slow motion. That metaphor hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It completely captures the gravity of this threat. We aren't dealing with a dead relic. This is an active, dynamic system gathering strength right beneath the ocean floor. So how does this actually happen? To explain it, the researchers proposed this groundbreaking melt re-injection model. It breaks down into 3 logical steps. Step 1, a giant caldera eruption occurs which completely empties out the magma chamber. Step 2, thousands of years pass where the caldera appears totally quiet and dormant on the surface. But then comes Step 3. Fresh magma from the deep earth mantle begins to rise up, slowly refilling that reservoir. Over thousands of years, the volcano systematically recharges itself. Now, you might be thinking, well, this is just a hyperspecific issue for Japan, right? Wrong. And this is exactly why this discovery is making waves worldwide. This recharging mechanism is a global phenomenon. Researchers believe this exact same slow-motion refilling process could be occurring beneath the world's other major supervolcanoes. We're talking Yellowstone in the United States, Toba in Indonesia, Campi Flegrei in Italy. The world's most famous sleeping giants might all be quietly pulling fresh magma from the mantle, just slowly reloading for their next event. So what happens if Kikai's reloading process reaches its breaking point? Well, it could trigger a global volcanic winter. Let's be clear about the consequences. If Kikai were to unleash another VEI-7 eruption in our modern era, the local fallout would be unimaginable. Millions of people in major cities across southern Japan would face pyroclastic flows and intense ashfall, with evacuations being nearly impossible in the short hours between the warning and the blast. But on a global scale, a volcanic winter triggered by stratospheric aerosols would lower temperatures worldwide for years. We'd be looking at fractured global supply chains, grounded trans-Pacific flights, and widespread agricultural collapse. The economic damage wouldn't be measured in the billions, it would be in the trillions. And fundamentally, unlike a hurricane where you can go back and rebuild the next year, the land itself would be poisoned and buried. There would be no rebuilding for decades. Which brings us to our final takeaway for today, reflecting on our place in deep time. There's a really uncomfortable truth here about our relationship with the planet. Supervolcanoes are just fundamentally different from every other natural disaster we face. Earthquakes, they strike instantly. Hurricanes, well, they give us a few days to prepare. But supervolcanoes, they operate on timescales totally alien to human perception. Kikai has been silently recharging for 7,300 years. Now, it could continue recharging for another 10,000 years before it erupts, or conditions could suddenly accelerate. The scary part is, while science is building these incredible new tools to detect early warnings, we still do not fully understand the exact triggers that push a supervolcano from slowly filling to a catastrophic eruption. Kikai isn't an immediate pack-your-bags emergency for today. Rather, it's a humbling reminder. It reminds us that the very forces that create the islands and land masses we live on can just as easily erase them. So I want to leave you with this thought. As we build our entire lives on the cooled skin of a molten world, are we truly prepared for the hidden monsters quietly waiting beneath the surface? Because sometimes the most dangerous things in the universe are the ones that make absolutely no noise at all.